our first grown-up conversation, Ayan.
I think we should start by explaining to everyone why I'm going to call you Indu Auntie through this session. Indu Auntie is the mother of a very good friend of mine from school. So through my growing up years, I've always been aware of her. In some ways, I've been aware of her my whole life.
So this is really, as I said, our first grown-up conversation.
Your son really helped me when I was trying to put Wake Up Sid together, though.
I know the script was lying at my house for quite some time.
Indu Auntie's son Leo is also a journalist and was at that point working for Time Out Bombay. Within Wake Up Sid, if you guys remember it, there's like a magazine, like a Bombay magazine, and it's had a lot to do with the city. So he was actually like a big ally in, figuring some of that stuff out.
Right.
Yeah.
Are films a passion for you, or is it like a way of life, something you've seen always, and so you just was the natural next step for you when you finished studying?
I think it's a little bit of both. But I think that certainly there's a large group of people, I think, that work in the industry that come from film families.
Yeah.
Within that, there are many divisions. There's like the young person who enters from a very successful film family. Like Ranbir Kapoor, in that his father was very successful. Everyone was sort of waiting for his launch film. He'd been offered a launch film by many illustrious directors. Yeah. My story was slightly different, because the family did have a relationship with fame and a lot to do with the founding of the Hindi film industry. But it was really like the golden era of my family was my grandfather's time.
True.
And I sort of grew up with a not very successful father who was part of films. My father was also an actor. His name is Mr. Yeh Mukerji. But if you guys have seen Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar, he's the coach for the bad team. Right. And most of my cousins, we did have some success in my generation. Kajal and Rani are my cousins. But a lot of them, actually, most of them tried to enter films as writers, actors, directors, and all of them had consistently failed.
True.
So I was at a really awkward place, because there was this sort of cloud of failure, in a sense, hanging over anyone who wanted to work in films. There was always a little bit of apprehension, I think. It was complicated. It wasn't like I grew up in the thick of the film industry. It's not like I knew Karan Johar, Ranbir Kapoor, all of the people that I hang out with and fraternize with today. Yeah. So I think films are part passion, part way of life for me.
Okay. You mentioned your parents, and you mentioned that you didn't actually hang around with these people. But you had a whole group of what I call the Juhu crowd friends, the film friends, right? You were very good friends with Aarti, for example, who's Manmohan Shetty's daughter. And with other filmy people in the school?
There's a feeling like that, especially when you grow up in Bombay, like everyone has some connections with someone who's in film, especially if you grow up in the suburbs, the school that I went to with your son. But I met Aarti actually when I was already a working professional. I never knew her in school.
Okay.
And my core school gang, actually none of them worked in film. So that's not true entirely.
Okay.
And I had a very awkward moment after I passed out of school and before I entered film, and I feel I meet a lot of youngsters today who are in that same place because I couldn't afford to go and study film in America, which is, it was not an option. And I really wanted to. I thought this foreign education would be amazing. Today I feel, and we can talk about this, that the best thing I did was that I didn't land up in film school, because I think it would have screwed me up completely. I didn't really know how to break into films. How do you break into films, So there was a very awkward 4 to 5 years where I really felt like I don't know what's going to happen in my life. And then I think things turned out okay.
So did Wake Up Sid come from there? The fact that you also were looking for yourself, you were finding yourself, discovering what your capabilities were, which is what Wake Up Sid is all about.
Yeah. Indu Auntie, it's this question of whether Wake Up Sid is a slightly autobiographical film.
True.
I've been asked so many times. Okay. And it's such a, I really don't have a very straight answer to the question. Because I think that like all films are autobiographical in some way. Like even if I was making American Hustle, which I just watched yesterday and it's my favorite film of this year.
Okay.
And it's a film about like a scandal, like a fraud scandal in the 70s, a completely like way out story. But in it, like when the director has written it, the sort of human relationships that he's like pointing towards, man, woman, affair, a relationship with a certain kind of woman as a wife. We're always channeling the personal in some ways. Yeah. So I just think in Wake Up Sid, it stood out a lot more because the character was so obviously young. I was young. He was a Bombay character. The links were very obvious and they could be seen very clearly.
Yeah.
But I think there'll always be a certain degree of the personal involved as long as I'm writing my own material.
True, true. Now, both your films that you've done have been with Ranbir. Does his character guide your characters in the sense that you know that when you're writing, do you have Ranbir in mind? Like now, your third film that you're writing,
I am certainly keeping him in mind, yes.
Okay.
We haven't had an official conversation about whether he'll do the film. There's an unsaid understanding, perhaps, that he will. You know, I feel very privileged to be in that position with him because he's such an exciting actor and star, obviously. However, I never knew Ranbir before Wake Up Sid happened. In fact, it's a funny story because Wake Up Sid almost landed up being Imran Khan's film. You know, like it was, Karan had almost like taken the film. Actually, I mean, Karan came onto the project before Ranbir did.
Yeah.
He was producing the film, I was his assistant, that's the story of the film. I took the script to Karan first of all. And my friendship with Ranbir and working relationship with him was obviously formed while making Wake Up Sid.
True.
So I didn't write my first film with him in mind.
Right.
But now he has become something of a muse, I think. And when you look at certain directors, you do tend to see those patterns in a few directors' lives. I'm not going to take their names because they're all like really famous people and it feels like I'm comparing myself with them. You know, but certainly there is, you know, something going on there. He's a very important creative force in my life and we work well together and, you know, for now, certainly he's in my mind. Done.
Okay, also since you are not on Facebook or Twitter, tell us some things about you that we don't know.
You don't know anything about me.
Yeah, that's exactly. So, no, I know a lot about you, Ayan.
No, Induanti,
I do actually.
I mean, the truth is that in our country, we know a lot less about our filmmakers than we do about our actors.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, like, when you ask me that about Ranbir, like, it feels like everything has been said. You know, I mean, like, I'm on this interview with you, and you know, like, actors attract a lot of attention. You're asking me about him.
Yeah.
Nobody knows anything about me. I mean, people know about me what they've seen in my 2 films. I mean, you can ask me anything about myself.
Okay.
You know, what I read, what I watch, how I live, you know, my work process. It's all actually, the truth is, I also don't have an entire sense of myself yet.
So we'll move on to asking things about you. Okay, tell me, this is something that always fascinates me, especially for writers. When you write, your characters live with you so much at that time, they almost become your best friends whilst you're writing it. So do they live with you later once you've sort of immortalized them on film and made that film? Like, do you still, the character Sid, does he still come back to you ever?
No, not so much.
But he did at one point?
No, not so much anymore. In fact, I feel that till Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani hadn't released, I don't think, I don't know what you guys think and I don't know what people think, but I actually find my 2 films very close to each other. Like, I know one is a much larger sort of, you know, like seems like a more commercial venture, and I think like I've often felt that because of that, people haven't been able to see like similar themes running through both the films. But up till this point, I think I've been obsessing about similar themes and been writing from like the same place, basically. But now after Yeh Jawaani, I do feel I've exhausted that material a little bit. And it's so funny, you know, I used to have a great nostalgia for school years, for my, for like what I was telling you, my early 20s, friendships. Like, I really wanted to write about that stuff. And it's like suddenly with the release of Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani, it really feels like I'm not nostalgic about it anymore. Like, I've mined that material, and by making films about it, like that's kind of done for now. So maybe it'll come back later, and you know, like 10 years later, it'll feel different. But it does feel like now I've left some of those themes and those characters behind, yes.
So Wake Up Sid, where exactly did it come from? How long did the process take of, one, writing it, secondly, getting somebody to approve of it?
So, you know, Induanti, what it was, I had worked on a couple of films as an assistant. And I figured at some point that working as an assistant, what it does is it introduces you to the industry in a sense. Like, you understand, you know, you get a sense of people that you're working with, etc. You understand the energy of the industry, but it doesn't teach you anything about being a filmmaker, in my opinion. Okay, like a filmmaker is essentially like, you know, finding a story within yourself that you want to tell, and then going out and trying to find a way to tell that story. It's a form of communication. It's like how I'm trying to communicate my thoughts through this answer.
Yeah.
And so at some point I realized ki, okay, this assistant giri is only going to take me so far. It doesn't mean I'm going to become a filmmaker. But what could perhaps take me one step towards becoming a filmmaker is write a story. You know, like don't waste all your time just like working on set, figuring out ki, you know, when will the food arrive for the actors and what time will the actors arrive on set. Now, I had never written a screenplay. I never went to film school, so it never happened naturally in that process. And I certainly wasn't someone who was born as one of those people who was writing through my teenage years, etc. But I decided ki yaar, you know, I have to write a story somehow. And I got jacked. It was really hard. Like the first time you sit down to write a screenplay, it's extremely hard because in some ways you come completely face to face with your mediocrity, with your lack of creativity. You know, most days when you sit down to write, you have no idea how you're going to take a little idea and string it into a screenplay. And it's a little bit like jumping into a swimming pool without knowing how to swim. I knew I wanted to write a script, but I had no structure, no guidance of how to go about it.
Sure.
So what that results in is a lot of intoxication, a lot of hanging out, a lot of like wasting your time, a lot of not working and not making any money, and you know, sort of being brave enough, I think, to say that it's okay, you know, like it's fine. I'm 23. I don't have a job, but I'm not going to like just take on a job because I want to. I'm going to find a way to finish this script.
Yeah.
And so I started saying that I wanted to be a writer when I was 23. And it was 2006, like halfway through, maybe the beginning. Until 2008, I had nothing. I didn't have a page. It was like almost 2 years, a year and a half. I traveled. You know, my folks were, I suppose, getting a little anxious. I was living off their money. You know, I watched films avidly. I read a lot of other screenplays. Just broke my head a lot. And then finally, like, you know, kar karke, like try kar karke, in the beginning of like 2008, something happened. Like, like I started seeing within myself the story that I wanted to tell. Or, you know, it became more clear to me. I gained more clarity into myself. And then I wrote the script. And when I finally wrote it in a span of just 2 months. I think a certain kind of discipline really helped me finish writing that material.
What brought the discipline? Something, there must have been some event or some, you know, some sort of an epiphany, something that...
Yeah, hitting absolute rock bottom.
Okay.
You know, feeling like nothing is going to happen in my life, and I just, like, absolute desperation. You know?
Okay.
That was it. At some stage, I had identified the feeling of the film that I wanted to tell. Okay. And it was very strong in me. I couldn't articulate it. I don't know how different artistic people, writers, filmmakers chance upon their material. But I had like a feeling in me. Like I was hanging out. It was a certain time in my life. I was listening to a certain kind of music. And as these like early 20s were passing, I was already kind of nostalgic for them. You know, like it was in some ways, while I was struggling, it was also a wonderful time. Like I was very keenly aware of my youth, you know, in a way that I feel now I've already, like, if I was to, I would never be able to write that film today.
Okay.
You know, like I would go out in the middle of the night and be hanging out with a friend in Bombay, and I would be like, you know, there was such a sense of newness to everything, and just like a certain kind of drinking in from life. And I was like, I need to put this in a film because it's such a wonderful feeling that I'm feeling. Let me capture it in a bottle. But my process was so scattered and so artistically like I was so artistically carried away in a sense that I couldn't get any work done. You know, I often see this kind of person also, people that you feel have a certain kind of spark, a certain kind of like poetry in their energy, but they just don't have a certain kind of like practicality and a discipline to, you know, truly like finish what they're starting, to really finish a book or really finish a script. And so I would write a few pages and I would get lost, and I would write a few pages, and then I had really hit rock bottom. Like it was a question of becoming an assistant again and working with Karan Johar on My Name is Khan, and I really did not want to do that. I really wanted to, I was like, I've spent a year and a half, I should finish this script. And I just cut out everything from my life. Like I stopped going out, I just stopped like meeting people, just really sort of, like disciplined myself. And it came, like I suddenly, like I had one page, and one page became 2 pages, and 2 pages became 10. And before I knew it, I was close to an interval, and this script happened. And it was, yeah, I perhaps can't entirely understand even now what that switch was. I give credit to a kind of discipline that came into my life. And then I had the script, and I took it to Karan, who I knew, who I had worked with. And he heard it, and I think he felt a good instinct. He felt that there was like an honest intent in this story. And he said, let's do it. And that's how the film happened.
Okay, that's very interesting for struggling writers, those that are looking to make a film. How do you go about it? Wake Up Sid is like more in a down-to-earth space, and the space that's more realistic. And the one, Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani, of course, is like La La Land, typical Bollywood mainstream thing, which doesn't exist anywhere actually. Now, if you were given the choice of inhabiting one of these two...
So you obviously preferred Wake Up Sid.
Actually, I did.
You did, yeah.
I did.
I mean, yeah, by the way in which you say it, yeah.
Though I love the music of Yeh Jawaani, and
that's
I love
what everyone
Deepika.
says. When they say, yeah, we love the music and all, but yeah, we much preferred Wake Up Sid. It just made about like, 1/6 the money of the second film. But what do you do? It was just the music.
What to do? No, I love Deepika, and I thought she was presented wonderfully, and she was really good. And that was like one of her sort of changeover films, as it were. But the question is that if you could inhabit one of these two places on a totally personal level, which would you choose?
Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani.
You would?
Yeah, I would. Absolutely.
Okay. Why?
Because, see, I haven't seen both my films since they came out. I haven't seen Wake Up Sid since the day that it released.
Okay.
And I haven't seen Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani since the day that it released.
Okay.
And perhaps I'll never have a very unbiased and a very fresh reaction to the films. I get a sense that there was a certain innocence because you're not the only one who tells me this. A lot of my friends say it as well. Oh, we much preferred Wake Up Sid to Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani. And so I do want to relook at the film to see if there was like something that perhaps I left behind in that film.
Okay.
But in my understanding, which may be clouded right now, Jawaani was a more complex film for me to make. Like I said, I think it came from the same writing place, but in its writing and what it was trying to go for, like if we talk about what Wake Up Sid was about, and we talk about what Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani was about in my mind, Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani was a far more complex film for me. It was a tougher film for me to write, and I think it said something more poignant than Wake Up Sid managed to say. And then I really enjoyed the commercial success of Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani.
Of course.
No, but like, so you asked me which space I'd rather inhabit. To me, Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani, I stepped away from that experience after the film release more satisfied in some way. I think I felt a little discontent after Wake Up Sid. I felt like, great, I'd been given a pat on the back, I'd been given a place in the industry. But I never understood that, like, why didn't people actually go to the cinema and really watch this film? Like, I mean, when you say that you enjoyed it so much more than Jawaani, etc., this is, I mean, people just didn't really go out there and buy tickets to watch it. And when people do that to, like, for your work, when they go, like, when everyone goes and they watch it and, it gets that kind of like, it's just a wonderful feeling. I can't describe like what that feeling is. I can't encapsulate it. And so, I think I would choose the Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani experience perhaps over the Wake Up Sid experience. This also is like, like choose between my two films so strongly.
Yeah, I know,
it's a slightly mean thing to do.
But what people normally say is, your films are like your children, and how can you like one child better? I'm so happy you didn't say that.
I suddenly feel like I'm betraying the Wake Up Sid experience, like, because it was a really special experience as well.
I'm sure it was, I'm sure. It's very difficult for an outsider to come into the film industry or to be able to work it because they don't exactly understand the lingo. When I say lingo, I don't only mean words. The ways and means, as it were, of the film industry. So what advice would you give a total rank outsider who wanted to make a film?
I would say work in the industry and work without enter the film industry without too many preset thoughts and opinions in your head, like preconceived ideas of film. Hindi film industry in general, it's distinct, the our industry. Too much of like, like not to get bogged down by any opinions that they formed about the film industry from the outside, and certainly by reading what we read written about film most of the times.
You mean like the newspapers and the
I
magazines?
mean like
and all?
newspapers, I mean like English criticism in this country,
Huh.
which I think is the death of Indian cinema.
True,
Like I think it's
true,
the
yeah.
it's like English criticism in this country is so completely off with the actual workings of the industry. I have a big personal bone to pick with actually a lot of English criticism
Okay.
in this country.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's what I would say. Work and work openly.
Yeah, so that you learn from experience and not just learn from.
So that you learn from
your,
experience
from your
and-
baggage, as it were.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of it's a tricky time, I feel, in the way in which information about our movies is going out.
Yes, absolutely.
Because in general, India is a large country. We're a fairly confused country. Lots of
Yeah.
different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Two, there's a lot of like foreign influence in the air.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
foreign films are available.
TV has a lot of.
TV has a lot of stuff
yeah.
happening. Like I felt this with Yeh Jawaani, for example, and like I have no issues with. I mean, you could see the film and you could say, "Yaar,
Yeah.
I don't like the film. Yeah, like I think it should get a half-star review
Right.
or something." But there is and it's fine, really, genuinely.
Huh.
But there is a tendency amongst a lot of English writing about film to uphold a certain kind of film and to just absolutely not uphold a certain mainstream kind of Hindi
I
film.
understand.
You know, it's
Yeah.
broadly speaking, there is just this divide. So, like, I hate to generalize, but you see like tons of like 4-star review films which make like no money at the box office and are
Absolutely.
bombing at the box office, and then you see like films which actually like an audience member loves and they make a lot of money
Yeah.
at the box office. I feel in the Western world, in the way in which like the Hollywood film industry is organized, certainly they're not going to give great reviews to like Amazing Spider-Man or like The Avengers.
Yeah.
But there is a context in which that film is absorbed by
True.
the English media and written about. And
Yeah.
there's an understanding of where that film is coming from.
Yeah.
So I feel this kind of sense of how people haven't really got the pulse of the people. Like, you know, normally like the voices in the media represent the pulse of an audience.
Absolutely.
And I don't
Yeah.
necessarily feel like that's happening very clearly in our industry. You know, so amongst a certain kind of person, I was a big star after I'd made Wake Up Sid. Within this like arc of Juhu to South Bombay and a certain kind of English media person, it was like, wow, what a like wonder, like, you know, like I have arrived.
You've arrived.
Etc. But the truth is I had not arrived. Like if you go out in the country, a lot of people just hadn't watched that film, and the grammar of that film was something that they were not interested in watching. So let's not run down that film for that reason.
Right.
But let's understand the country that we live in. You know, let's, you know what I'm trying to
Yes,
say.
absolutely,
So-
absolutely.
So yeah.
On a totally different note, after the success of Yeh Jawaani, you took your parents on some sort of a world tour, didn't you?
Not a world tour. I took them on a cruise.
How did it feel?
It felt great. It felt wonderful, and it was. It felt great. There's nothing else.
Yeah,
to say.
because as you said earlier, you were living off them and they were worried about you.
They
The
were
other day when I
worried
met
of
your
me. It
dad, he
feels-
seemed so proud.
Yeah, though you know my dad. My
Yeah,
dad was
yes.
always proud.
Always
You know, he was one of those dads. He was like always a little bit like over obsessed. Always like very happy. But yeah, they're very happy, and it feels great, you know, to be able to give back.
I can
And
imagine,
you know,
yeah.
it feels great.
Yeah, yeah. 10 years down the line, where would you like to be on the filmmaking scene?
I'd like to be directed another 3 or 4 films. I'd like them to be good films, and I'd like them to be successful films. I feel like the subject matter that I'm now leaning towards, and I don't know if it'll become my next film entirely.
Okay.
I think it's quite risky and quite interesting, and I think that if it becomes a film and a kind of film that works, it'll be quite a, you know, I don't want to say path-breaking, but like a, you know, like a strong film in
Okay.
the Hindi film canon.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd want to be here working, you know, getting more Indians into the cinema. I definitely feel very inspired about the idea of India and Indians coming into the cinema. You know, I read a statistic recently which said to me that, I mean, number one, this is a statistic which a lot of people know, that like only 3% of our population has watched 3 Idiots, you know, in the cinema.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that's and that's like, perhaps like the greatest number of cinegoers which
Yeah.
we've seen in the last decade.
True.
And I read another statistic which said to me that actually the original Agnipath, which didn't do very well and was considered to be a flop at that time, actually had more cinegoers who bought a ticket and went into the cinema than the new Agnipath, which grossed 120 crores.
Right.
There is this sort of conversation about the decline in the number of people actually buying tickets and going in to watch movies in the cinema. So while we're hitting this big like 100 crore and 200 crore number, and great, Jawaani has done 180 crores, it doesn't actually, like a lot of films that were considered to be far more mediocre successes in the early 90s and the 80s actually had a lot more Indians going to the cinema. And this again ties in with my like I feel like with this stuff about English media and hyping to certain films, etc. I feel like, where are our audiences? Like, why are they not in the cinema?
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
if you read about like what's happening in China right now, in the Chinese film industry, and you hear the figures of certain Hollywood films in that market, and the Chinese film industry is vibrant, but not as vibrant as the Hindi film industry. It's remarkable, like the figures that they are putting up. And I hope that we can put up figures like that coming out of India and make films for India in that way. So yeah, I'm really driven by that kind of thought process.
Oh, that's good to know. How do you deal with the success that you see everywhere? Is it overwhelming? Is it like your due? How do you react?
Like my
to
own
it?
success?
Yes, your own success.
But Indu Auntie, it's only been one film, yeah.
But you're the toast of the town with a film like this. I mean, isn't it the fact that you're nominated for every film award?
I was nominated on Wake Up Sid also.
So that's
And the
but with
awards
this
are crap.
also you have money, right? Lots and lots of money.
I don't have lots of money. Karan Johar has lots of money. And the truth is that even he doesn't have lots of money. Like, we make far less money on movies than it seems, like on the outside.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends that work in like business families and run businesses, and they are far wealthier than I can like hope to be at this point. So I'm quite broke actually, like I have to get another film out sooner than later.
When you have a difference of opinion, as it were, in your script with Karan, he's been your producer for the two films.
Yeah.
So does he like sit on your head and say, I know better, I've done like 5, 6 super films.
Karan's not been involved at all in that way with my films. In fact, what I want to say is that I wish he was more involved with the writing and the script process. Only because, of course, for his like opinions on my film and to gain his wisdom, but more than that, because films are such a lonely process. When you're sitting to write, and it's so like, you really get like stuck with your own film for many years, and nobody cares for your film. This is what happens when you're making a film. The emotion that you feel consistently through the film is that nobody cares about my film as much as I do. Absolutely. You feel like your actors, like, they want to come to set and all, but then they want to wrap up and they want to go back to their like girlfriends and boyfriends, and they want to go out for dinner. And your ADs and all, of course they care about your film, but it's not their film. They'll eventually want to also like go out and have a drink.
True.
And so every day ends with this feeling of like, I am the only one who really cares about this, and nobody cares about this project enough. So one of the wonderful things that happens in the filmmaking process, which is why I don't understand how like novelists and all do it, is that in films we collaborate.
Yeah.
And Karan has been very aloof from the writing process on both my films. First film, he read the script and that was it. And then he never had any suggestions or came in. He came in straight when I was editing the film and saw the film and gave me his notes.
Okay.
And his notes were, reshoot the climax of the film. Ranbir and Konkona look really bad kissing. So I reshot it. And once he saw a sequence in the film where he thought we had dressed Konkona really badly. And he was like, you have to reshoot this sequence. She looks like, I'm not going to say what he said.
Yeah, I know, but one can understand. Yes,
He was like, we have to like reshoot this sequence. So I wish he was more involved. I wish we were... my friendship and relationship with him is much more personal. We talk about a lot of stuff other than actually just sitting on like every script note of mine, etc. Yeah.
Okay, which are the filmmakers you would recommend to a person who wants to come into films as a filmmaker? I
don't know, Indu Auntie. I can tell you filmmakers I like and how it's changed for me. Eventually, like I feel like watch a lot of stuff, but like try to hone your own voice, I suppose, and not allow like too much of another voice or another influence to wash out your own voice, to drown your own voice, which can happen very easily, you know, when you're too steeped in another filmmaker's films. But for me personally, this was my journey in films. My youth was spent being like a Walt Disney / old Hollywood musical child. You know, came very much from my family as well. You know, old film families had this big thing where they were constantly borrowing ideas from like the golden age of Hollywood.
Right,
so I grew up around a lot of golden age Hollywood names like Frank Capra and Billy Wilder and Hitchcock. There was a certain era in Hindi films where, you know, like they were big fans of that. They were the reference.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of that from my dad,
Right.
like old Hollywood and Disney. My relationship with old Hindi cinema is very weak. In fact, my resolution for this year is to watch 2 classic Hindi films every week, because I don't really have that relationship. You know, I've seen very little of Guru Dutt and Raj Kapoor and all of that. And then I moved on to my induction into Hindi films was Karan Johar, Farhan Akhtar, Aditya Chopra, Rang De Basanti, Shah Rukh Khan. Basically, it was all Shah Rukh Khan. Then I went through that age where I was 18 and wanted to look at films very seriously, and I still love those films, don't get me wrong, but it was all like, I'm watching Fellini now and Truffaut now, and I only wanted to watch like American indie films, and I love those films, but there was a degree of feeling slightly self-important while watching those films. You know, like how you watch a film that's slightly smart and you feel a little bit smarter because it's a little boring, so you feel like, I've worked to get this, you know, to get the juice out of this film, and not everybody like knows like La Dolce Vita. I'm 18 and I know it. So there was that, and now I think I've gone back to basics. Now I'm totally like Christopher Nolan, rewatching all of like Spielberg's original work, watching Star Wars a lot, like watching a lot of big commercial entertainers, sold my soul type films, you know.
Okay, one last question I want to ask you is that the music of your films is both your films have been fantastic.
You thought even Wake Up Sid?
I loved Wake Up Sid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I loved the music of it. So the music, the lyrics, how much do they come from within you, or how much do you accept what you're given?
No, I don't accept what I'm given. And they don't come from within me in that I don't have like, you know, like Sanjay Leela Bhansali's command over music, who's able to actually make music in a way. And even Karan Johar, who I think has a great command over music. Music evokes very strong emotions in me and a certain kind of feeling. And so a lot of my collaboration with the music directors is trying to like explain the like feeling and emotion that we need from a song, even if it's a song like Balam Pichkari. I work hard on the music. I think that's it. Like I work hard on the music. Eventually, of course, I mean, you know, it belongs and comes from the composers and the lyricists. But I really give like a lot of my time to the process, and I gave more of my time, I must say, on my second film than my first film. In fact, if you ask me, my most important and creative collaboration on Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani, it was with Pritam. It was a magical collaboration, you know. And yeah, so we worked hard, he worked hard, I worked hard. We waited for the music to come. We like didn't shoot songs if we didn't feel we had the right music. You know, we really waited till the last minute to make sure that our songs were good. And even when we had the music, we worked very hard on the instrumentation and, you know, just making sure that it's sounding really good, the sound of the music. We delayed our music release by almost 15 days. We had Mr. Bhushan Kumar from T-Series like literally like threatening us that he was just going to release whatever version of the music that he had. In fact, there are 3 versions of Kabira which have been released. We gave him the CD saying release it. Then that night we changed something in the song. So we called him and we said, okay, now you have to change the CD. But it was already all over the internet, and we were calling websites and we were like, that's the wrong version of the song. This is the right version of the song. And yeah, so we worked hard on the music.
Do you sing?
No, not at all. Besura completely. I wish I had.
Do you want to try and then let us be the judge of that?
Please don't make me do that. Really.
Okay. Okay. Ayan Mukherjee is here for all of you to.
Great. I got out of my 3.
No,
three
but we now have to. No. We still have to do the Ranbir thing.
Managed.
Somebody else will ask you.
My question is, if you see Wake Up Sid and Yeh Jawaani Hai Deewani, there's a very kind of good connect of the character with the parents. So, is it coming from you itself? Your relation with your father is similar kind of those characters which you have portrayed in the movie?
Asesh, right? Yeah, I think there's a little bit of like something personal thrown in there. And I don't know, I think that I feel like the most interesting stories about me, like when she asked me what do we not know about you, etc., actually come from my family. Uh, in fact, whenever I've met people like random strangers and I've spoken to them about, let's say, my love interests or my friends, and then when I talk about my family, like people always tell me that that's like that's the most interesting thing about you. You know, like that's what really captivates them. I think like for me personally, my most like emotional churning, there's a lot of unmined story within like, you know, my relationship with my family, parents, that whole thing. I think I've just touched the tip of the iceberg in my first two films. But yeah, there is something personal going on there, and I think that when I'm a little bit more mature, I'll be able to deal with those themes in an even larger way, I think.
So when you were in your 20s or when you were assisting on films, did you ever feel that you weren't capable enough to become a director to, you know, carry an entire film on your shoulders?
Oh God, I
Yes, how did you overcome it?
Oh, you never overcome it. I still feel that way. I always feel like, what do I know really? Like, who am I to think that I can make a film, that I can carry a film? But what has to override it is you know, the fact that you really, really want to make a film. And like they say, right, like, you know, that saying about how courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of fear, and, you know, and still going out there and being brave. It's a little bit like that. You continue to feel insecure. I continue to feel like, I don't know how Jawaani became such a big hit. So many people watched it. I have no idea if I'll be able to repeat it. Lots of hope, you know, I think is a good way to go.
मैंने आपको देखा था गोल्ड जिम में, अगर फिफ्थ को भी वो सीन नहीं लिखा गया था, still I saw you working so hard. So what was going in your mind कि film release हो रही है 31st May को, and still you're working out, you're getting time for yourself, or you were so much focused on your workout.
Huh.
So, am I?
Yeah.
How can you be working out when you have a film releasing?
You कभी यहाँ नहीं देखना, वहाँ नहीं देखना, तो मैं सोच रहा कि क्या सोच रहे हो, आई हो कि making this movie. Second सवाल ये है कि आप इसमें नजर आए थे फिल्म में एक सीन के लिए, कभी-कभी जो गाना चल रहा था,
हाँ जी,
आप बैठे हैं,
बिल्कुल, हाँ जी.
तो क्या वो हमेशा कंटिन्यू करेंगे?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं. मैं हर फिल्म में तो नज़र नहीं आऊँगा. वो दिन जब वो कभी कभी का गाना चल रहा था, मैं बस बैठ गया. सब लोग का मूड था, रणबीर को थोड़ी मस्ती चढ़ी हुई थी. सेड बैठ जाओ, तो मैं बैठ गया. इट वाज जस्ट अ वन शॉर्ट थिंग, इट डिडंट मैटर. जिम, honestly, the honest thing is two reasons. Number one, I've always gone to the gym. I feel it makes me look better, and when I don't go to the gym for many days, I feel that I won't look so good. So I like to look good. But in that time, actually मैं consistently नहीं जा रहा था gym. Once in a while I used to go, क्योंकि also, you know, it's kind of like a stress buster. Like when you're very tired, some exercise, like it gets your mind thinking again, etc. Even now, like when I'm writing, I make sure that I'm exercising a lot. It gives you a good energy. So that's why on and off through my film, जब भी मुझे वक्त मिलता था, shoot के दौरान, तो of course I was not going to the gym so regularly, but I would go to the gym whenever I felt कि मेरे को 1 घंटा मिल सकता है जिम के लिए. जिम में मैं अभी सीरियस क्या सोच रहा हूँ अभी वो सब मुझे पता नहीं है. ऐसे ही, you know, शायद कुछ भी नहीं सोच रहा था, शायद बहुत कुछ सोच रहा था. Depends on the day.
You just said you like stars, working with stars. So was Konkona your first choice for Wake Up Sid?
Oh, yeah, she was actually. Yeah, she was. But I'll tell you what, in my head, Konkona and Ranbir she was a big star in my head at that point in time. When we cast, me and Karan often joke about this. When we cast Ranbir and Konkona, we thought, what a casting. Like, wow, India is going to go crazy about this casting. So interesting, unconventional. And at that point, Ranbir was doing a film with Katrina called Ajab Prem Ki Gazab Kahani. So we were thinking, who's going to watch that film, yeah? You know, with like Ranbir and Katrina, you know, like it's like looking like one cheap comedy type. Look at our film, we have Ranbir and Konkona, man. Interesting casting. And I remember I met Katrina, I had gone to the sets of Ajab Prem Ki Gazab Kahani. And I met Katrina, so Katrina just asked me one day, she said, hey, how come you do Konkana in your film and all? And I was just thinking, what does she know? Like, you know, look at my casting. It's so exciting. But, yeah, at that point, honestly, I love Konkana as an actress. I really love her. In fact, if you ask me, I think of her even now and how she used to do certain things. And I feel that me and Ranbir were able to get really close on Wake Up Sid. And I think he was, at that point, I haven't seen the film now, but came across so nicely in that film because Konkona completely took care of herself. You know, we learned so much working with her.
That's it on the questions now.